like looking around, it's like, do you want to be cliche? It's always nice kind of like feeling like other people are with you. But like, The Thing is like, one of my favorite movies. So, because like even with the things I like, it's just psychological and it does everything really well. And then, it's actually genuinely like terrifying. I'm picking favorites. Out of all the ones, it's weird, but Liar Liar is like my favorite Jim Carrey movie, and it makes me laugh every time because it's like it's the '90s comedy, family comedy, but it's it's Jim Carrey. So if I wanted something to like laugh at, I watch this movie, like clips from it all the time. I wanted to do Die Hard because I watch Die Hard every Christmas and things like that. But like Face Off, I would watch like straight through all the time. I think Die Hard's a better movie, but I think Face Off I enjoy more. Face Off is just so dumb. It's awesome. It's so dumb because there's so many things that don't make sense about it, but it doesn't have to make sense. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mike Sills, producer, director, Midnight Brunch, and these are my Desert Island picks, and you're here with Film Stock Podcast.
Watching the Mission Impossibles?
Yeah. Oh, I love Mission Impossible.
I think I've only seen 2 of them. And one of them was with Philip Seymour Hoffman because Seymour Hoffman was in it.
Yes, and he's really good in it. And even like in the terms of those movies, they consider that like the worst one or one of the worst ones.
Do they really?
Yeah. I think it's good.
I think it's pretty
but
fucking...
people do not like
again,
it.
2 movies under my belt from the Mission Impossible.
What's the other one?
The first.
All right. First one's really good.
So I saw the first.
First one's De Palma, so it's like,
I got mixed feelings about De Palma.
I know he's not the best. He isn't it's like saying things. Always these things are weird when you're like, I'm judging him, but
No, I can't.
But he has
judge
great movies.
De Palma.
But, right, he has not as great a track record, but the hits he has is
Even his good track record, though, volley with me here.
Yes,
even his good track record, I question.
Of course, yeah.
What's
I know I'm blanking on all De Palma right now. I'm not even the biggest
Shawn,
De Palma guy.
I literally just watched this movie maybe like 2 months ago. Shawn, remind me, what was that movie I watched where it's like he's the voyeur? It's like kind of like Vertigo. No, it's fucking De Palma. What was it? Body Double.
I know, yeah, Body Double's okay.
Dude, so I watched Body Double and I'm like, I'm reading the reviews. I'm like, this is like high rated De Palma. And I'm watching it. I'm like, am I an asshole?
Is Silence of the Lambs De Palma?
No, that's Jonathan Demme.
That is Jonathan Demme.
Jonathan Demme. But I'm watching this De Palma movie and I'm like, am I an asshole for just being like, this is totally a ripoff of
He's
Rear
just not
Window?
memorable. He's just not memorable. I guess that's the thing. But like people know his name.
People know his name.
Yeah, people know. I mean, I can't think of a movie of his.
Well, Scarface comes to mind.
Oh, Scarface is overrated.
Scarface kind of sucks.
Scarface is really overrated. It's not that it's a. Actually, I'll stop. Yeah, it's not like it's a bad movie, but it's just like I think that it gets a bigger reputation than it deserves. It's kind of a weird flick.
Yeah, what do you make of that? Is it because of Pacino? Is it because of like the gigantic performance that he gives, or
I guess.
Is it actually the filmmaking?
I think it's another movie that like he puts a lot into it, and because of that, it works. So it's like that's the thing with Cruise is like he puts everything into everything, and if you think about the bad movies, he still like is putting 110% in, or he won't do the film. And Pacino, for all it is, I think if someone was telling a story, and it was just like one of those things where he's like, if I'm doing a movie, I'm going to put my all into it. Like some comedian on another podcast, of course, Meta, was talking about working with him on Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
And he would just continue to come up with ideas after ideas. And it's like, you're working on this garbage comedy. You're working on this shit comedy, man. Chill out. But,
Ace and I have been talking about this for years, specifically in relation to fucking Pacino, dude. Yeah. He's aging like a fine bourbon. Like there was this weird like part of his career, and now like especially with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, such a small role, but like pitch perfect. And then fucking Irishman, and like he's coming out with all of these bangers where it's like you didn't go away, you kind of got weird and then got better.
No, you adapted, and that's the thing, and that's when you can tell like the good actors, great actors, and stuff is kind of how did they change or what do they do throughout their career, and so he did enough that. he's different now. He's whatever, and he can still sort of live up to the standards that he has, even if he does shitty films.
That he
still,
set
like,
when he was very young. Where
Yes.
it's like, Jesus Christ, man.
I mean, what a
like,
track record! I know, because
what
you
a
are
track
talking about
record.
Godfather, and you're talking about Serpico, and you're talking about Dog Day Afternoon. You're talking about these movies. You know, again, it's not great. Scarface is still a great, interesting. Heat was later, but like those first ones, Heat. He's fantastic.
Heat. Don't even.
Why, you don't like Heat?
No, him and I have a constant running debate. He has this foolish notion that somehow The Town is better than Heat.
No, that's not
whatever.
true.
We're gonna get into it another day.
No. That's not true.
But like going back to Pacino,
And I like
it's
The Town, but
I like The Town, but Heat. Come on. Anyway, but like going back to Pacino, like just Pacino, you could see the writing on the wall. Did you ever see his first film, Panic in Needle Park?
No, I know it though.
Yeah, man. Fucking, heroin, New York. It was awesome. And like, I remember seeing that, I don't know, probably like 25. And I'm like, wait, this is his first movie? Of course he was destined for greatness. This guy had it.
Yeah, you see actors in things where no matter where they're at, they still command the screen. It's like my grandmother used to have a copy of, oh my God, it's an early Spielberg. It's the one with the really young Christian Bale.
Oh, Empire of the Sun.
Empire of the Sun.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just watch it and you're like, okay. And you see him out there, and John Malkovich is in it, and he's in it. And later on, you're like, oh, okay. Even at that age, it's an actor, or they do things that are like, there's something that they capture you. And he was really great in that. I didn't know at the time.
Well, same thing. I mean, keeping with Christian Bale, dude, I think his next movie was Treasured Island with Charles Heston.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you watch that movie and it's like an epic movie to begin with. But then the idea that like he kind of carries that movie, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
But let's turn this back to you, because that's why we're here.
You don't have to.
No, please don't. So what was, what was kind of, I always like to ask this question of the guest, but hero's journey, the narrative device of the hero's journey. What was kind of your come to clarity moment where it's like filmmaking is something that sticks with me. It's something I want to pursue, something, I feel like I could have a say in.
Yeah. I don't know. I just always was kind of a visual person. And like my dad was the biggest thing. He just loves waxing poetic. So he loves telling stories. He's infatuated with classical.
Are you Irish,
things
Italian?
Like that. He is. I am actually, my mother is Irish Italian. My dad is like Eastern European.
Okay. So he's got like the storytelling gene in him.
Yeah. It's so yeah, I know he just always loved that stuff. And it was just one of those things that he wanted me to have appreciation for great films, and he always wanted me to have appreciation for those things. And it was just, it's like I was never a reader. And so my wife will bust me about that. But like,
is she a big reader?
Yeah, she's awesome. She loves stories. She's good with that too. She's always someone good to bounce things off of. But yeah, it was an easier thing, and it's easier to kind of, and books are great, but like, you from the creative end, you can just take what you have and put it out there. And whether it worked out exactly that way it is, or as close it is, that's still cool to be able to do that. Some people do comic books, some people do that. That's just the thing I loved. And when we'd watch the films, it was just, whether I like them or not, at least there's an appreciation for someone got to tell a story. It's almost more disappointing if things don't, but there's studios and stuff do their own things to do it. But I would just, it's grateful, I'm sure, to tell a movie. There's only a couple times that you feel like people are not appreciative of what they have. So,
yeah, of course. Yeah. Did you go to film school?
So yes and no. I went to Ithaca College in New York, and I wanted to, but I didn't have the grades to get into the film program there.
Okay.
So I just kind of, through osmosis, kind of stuck around and did my own things. I did the radio station there. And I did my own sketch comedy show for a long time. So I produced a show, and I just did as much through there. They let you take some courses up until, but all my friends were there. A lot of my close friends were a part of it. So I just tried to stay as close as I could. And I did sports media. So I was a sports fan. So it was also a thing of like, hey, maybe there's an element where I can blend these together. And after I got out, I just wasn't interested in going. I still love sports, because I think sports can still tell the most fascinating stories sometimes, when it's like, in different situations, whether tragic or great. I think there's a lot that goes into that. But I just wanted to go back. So then I went to BU and I went to film school there, and kind of dug in. And since then, it's just been the only thing. I never really had any real jobs. I was a server. I did some landscaping and things like that. But I don't know. I was always stubborn, and I knew that this was kind of what I wanted to do. So even now with my, I have a company and we work in that stuff. But I just never.
Yeah, how'd
really
the company come about, if you don't mind me asking? So Midnight Brunch, right?
Yes. So it started with after BU. I got. It's like you're bouncing around from job to job. You're doing lots of cool stuff. We're filming commercials. I would sleep on floors in New York.
Was this with like a core group of like friends you met through college or that you grew up with, or you're talking just like on your own?
It was it's like you have circles of people that you work with, but it was kind of like floating from one thing to another. But I was always excited because there was always good story going along with it, and it was exciting. You're working with this crew of people. You're working with these people, and it was always fun, kind of bouncing around. But early on, one of my business partners now, Matt, him and I started working together on projects. We did some short films, and we just connected because we helped each other out. We kind of did things that the other didn't, and we always kind of came together creatively, and we could always like argue, but also still be friends. And just for a long time, we wanted to start the company, and eventually 2018, 19, we were just like, yeah, we should probably do this. And then we had a third business partner, Marco, who came through a mutual friend of theirs. And since then, we've been all right. Even with all the things that have happened, we're still here and growing. So it's cool. But it's
what an odd time to start the company, right?
Yes, it was 2019, and then we lost everything. And that's when we'll get to that. But that's when we started. The company started going, and then Ethan, who's the writer.
Does he write all? So you obviously have like a lot of, promotional videos and like good content, but is he the main writer for all these things?
Ethan wrote that, and Ethan writes for the company. So he's a producer with us now. Ethan and I have worked together. So Matt and I have been working together for like 15 longer years. And Ethan and I have been working together for like 7 or 8. We were working mutually through another company. And then when we started this, Ethan's been a part of it since the beginning. So he's one of our producers, and he's our fourth, and we couldn't do anything without him.
Wait, is he the unofficial fourth? Is that what we were talking about the other day?
Just because Matt and I started, Matt, Marco, and I started it, but like he's the unofficial fourth without him. So it's more like I trust him with things that like pay my bills as I do with other things. He's great at what he does, and he's a good he's a good writer, and I think that when we started talking about the script, it was just I trust him at the point. But even through work, he's just been someone you rely on, and he's just a backbone. He's really helped us out. And when he came with this, it was just something that I was itching to shoot something. And I don't really write. And
now,
so,
are you kind of segueing in a smile? Because that's the second time that you've referred to this script.
Yeah,
you're talking specifically with Smile. And for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, can you give us the log line, give us the elevator pitch? What is Smile to you?
Smile to me it was fast. It was when Ethan gave me the script, I liked it because it just sort of represents a mindset you see a lot, that sometimes to me being friendly is just being friendly, and it doesn't need to mean very much else. And it also has a lot to do with kind of when we go different places, kind of like the things you sort of have to, do to succeed, or do to get along, or do to be a part of it. So I think that was the bigger part of it. I don't think necessarily the stalker aspect was bigger. I just think what she was doing and how she has to smile and do this thing, whether it matters or not, is what a lot of people do. So I just like that idea from it more than anything else.
And the storyline would be for Smile.
A young girl working at a coffee shop, gives off the wrong impression, or gives off a friendly impression, which leads to,
dire consequences.
Yeah, not even dire consequences, just like, I don't want to say leading someone on, because leading someone on means she's not doing anything that isn't normal. It's just her job. But the guy takes it the wrong way, and every guy thinks they're the hero of their own story. So
no, I feel like that's a really good way to put that. I mean, we've all had those interactions. Like, you know, you go to a coffee shop and
it's like, maybe she likes me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
I don't know.
Is she flirting with me?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is she flirting with me, or is it just 4 a.m. and I'm getting coffee and she's being nice?
And is it because she knows I'm going to tip her, you know, $5 on a $2.50 coffee?
Yeah. Or even that, to me, that doesn't even matter. It's just sort of like more of the fact of that it's like, I don't know. It's weird. And because like, even as a guy, I've been there and we all kind of think that at some point in our lives. That's all.
I got to tell you, man, she was great.
Corey's really good. Corey was awesome. Sorry.
Corey,
really
what was her last name?
Her last name now is Algar.
Okay.
She got married since we started. So
Corey was amazing.
Yes.
But on the second, because I thank you for sending me the link again. I got to watch it at New Bedford Film Festival.
Appreciate it.
And Ace was there as well. And we stumbled across this amazing block of films, yours included. We had a couple of drinks in us, and I was struck by the impression of it. I was like, that's a good movie. We got to talk to this guy. But got fuzzy as the night went on.
I understand.
So I was glad to have gotten it again. And when I watched it, I got to be honest, I was struck by him.
Dustin's great.
Dustin.
Yeah.
What's his last name?
Tuber?
Tuber?
Yeah.
Let's give him a shout out. Dustin Tuber.
Dustin was awesome.
There was something about him where I was watching it the second go around, and what's this movie? The Devil All the Time? No. He was also in Prisoners with the game show. Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, he is very like the polka dot man. And,
he had a very
John
it begins with an
Dallas
M.
Mayan or something.
Dallas Mayan or something. Yeah.
He's awesome.
So there was
a good
that.
point. Yeah,
there was
I've never
that
thought
going
of that.
on, but there was also like a very like real Benny Safdie in Good Times, and I was picking up on both of those.
I had just seen when we shot this. I had just seen Uncut Gems, and I loved it. And I saw Good Times, and I thought when we were doing this, I was trying to think about a lot of that actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved the music especially. It was like I loved those movies. I think there's something so raw about them. And then I love the use of like long shots and awkwardness, because even like humor I like is awkward. So because I liked Tim Robinson and I like all that. Like that's I Think You Should Leave.
Yep.
And so in the same things, a lot of times with these movies, the longer the shots, the better the things, the more awkward the moments is better.
Yeah.
So.
And you were saying on the phone the other day that you had kind of a weird experience with this one. Like, you know, you started and then had to stop it and come back to it.
So like I said, when we started the company in 2019, we got things going and we were like, okay, let's do a film. So Ethan wrote the script and he was excited about it. It was
like
actually
it's a creative endeavor, right? Like not something that's for somebody else, but this is for us.
Yeah, no, Ethan wrote it and he gave it to me to direct, and I was excited because I've been itching to do something since a few other projects, and we started it in February 2020, and then
awesome time to start.
Perfect timing, let me tell you. And we shot most of it, and we were like, oh, he's got a couple pickup shots. We'll just figure it out. And then, of course, no.
You get into the edit.
Yeah, no, I don't think we even got to the edit. I think we had the footage and stuff, but then as you know, everything shuts down. You're just like, your mind is not like, gotta finish this film.
Yeah.
So I think we started a couple months after. Maybe Ethan had started putting it together because he was excited. But
like, how much did you get filmed? Like, are we talking 50?
We had most of it because we shot it in like a weekend in a couple days, and so it wasn't long. It wasn't only a couple locations, and then we just needed a couple pickup shots. But yeah, no, that did not work out. Not like anything we planned. So then. Yeah, and then we just, as we made our way as a company, it was just important to that because we were able to all keep our footing. We had some people that kept everything from falling apart, and the business kept going, so we could take care of ourselves because Ethan was part of it too. And eventually we were like, all right, let's do this. And by the time we got back to filming, Corey, our lead, was pregnant. So it was like, oh man, we have to hide some. We have to hide some things.
Sure. And
then we also had to do one last pickup shot with her, and she couldn't make it, so we had to do like a stand-in at one point that looked like her, so that we could shoot some shots. There was just everything was working against us to just finish it, but
everything works out. It was specifically the scene where she's being followed. She's pregnant in those scenes. We're like, put her in a big jacket. We'll hide it. We'll keep tight on her face. We'll make sure to do those shots like that to kind of make sure we didn't show that she was pregnant.
So now, actually, it's funny you bring up the scene where she's being followed. You're talking about with the car, right?
Yes.
Like after the date, quote unquote. If
Yes.
you can call it that.
Yeah, no, right.
So when she's
life
being
session. I always look at it as like a life session because everyone has some like guys and women have a lot of time of like somebody who's like, I'm going to tell you the birds and the bees, even if you don't give a shit. And I'm like, thanks a lot.
yeah. Had to sit through that.
No, I got a friend. We all do. You got some older friend, or you meet someone on like a movie set or something, and then you go for a beer with them, and they're like, "Let me tell you how it really is." Like, okay, tell me how it really is.
Yeah, please. Can't wait to hear.
Yeah, please. Thank you. That's amazing.
But going back to that scene, did you have, so that was like post COVID, so to speak? Like when did that get shot? Because the reason I'm bringing it up.
I honestly can't even remember. I can't remember if it was like a year or a year and a half after. I can't remember. It was so like it really is like that everything blurred together from like 2020 to like 2022.
Okay. So you're still in that kind of like pandemic window.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is because one of the things I noted, I was like, so I did locations in the film industry.
Who did you work for?
That's, a loaded
I know
question.
a few guys that do locations. That's why.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I worked specifically for Ryan Cook. Ryan Cook was like my locations manager. Okay. But I also worked for Alex Berard, Josh Human, Greg Chido.
I don't know.
So I was all over the place with these guys. So from a location standpoint, like I know what it takes to get a wide shot, make it work, lock off streets and whatnot. And I'm watching your film and I'm like, and this isn't knocking the budget. I don't know what you shot it with, but it's like, okay, that's a big wide shot. And you got the tracking and, no cars coming. You've just got the main picture car kind of creeping slowly around the corner. And I was thinking to myself after our conversation, I'm like, they probably benefited the fuck out of COVID.
Yes.
Especially for
there
that.
was a lot
like,
of
there was nobody
empty street
around.
shots and things. So when we did some exteriors, that was just because it was like,
nobody's around.
Yeah, nobody's around. So we went and picked up some shots when it was like really kind of dead out. And only we have the one shot at the beginning of some guys that were just
working on the train track.
On the train track.
Yeah.
We were just the only people we were able to get, and somebody in their window, which we were like, should we shoot that? It's like, nothing's happening. It's just sitting there.
Just get it.
It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the car shot, but that car shot actually was closer to when everything was more open again. It just was.
Was it?
Yeah, it was just, they had just renovated that area of Quincy, Massachusetts, and that street nobody ever went down. So we kind of knew that, and so we're like, okay, well, nobody's figured the new layout yet, so we'll shoot it this way because nobody ever comes down this way.
Gotcha.
And
Where are you from? Are you from Quincy or like?
No, I'm from just south of Quincy, this little town called Norwell, but it's just nothing special. It's a nice place, but it's nothing.
It's a nice place. It's not Quincy.
No, Quincy's exciting. Quincy used to have some of the best bars, and then they shut them all down.
Yeah, it was probably after Good Will Hunting.
Yes, I know. Right, when everybody was, out about them apples.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you from Rhode Island? Or are you from?
No, I'm from Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you from this area?
Yeah, I'm probably about 10 minutes away.
Yeah, I am fascinated by your job.
I am.
When you call somebody and we're like, oh, we're doing a film podcast. I was like, all right, cool. And it's like, I work with dead bodies. So I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, that's a new development. I mean, I got to be honest. So I had this weird thing happen in my life, right? Where it was like I was working on back-to-back TV shows, and the last TV show I worked on was Julia season 2.
Yeah,
it was all about Julia Child.
Yep, I remember.
Period piece for HBO. And
you were doing locations on that?
I was doing locations.
Okay.
I was an assistant location manager on that. And it was with a location manager I had never worked for, and he had a completely different style than I was used to. We were understaffed, we were under budget, and we shot for 5 months, and maybe 6 months given pre-pro.
Right.
And I was commuting to Boston every day. Like, this is a manager who didn't fight for me. Like, he knew I was coming from Rhode Island, but he didn't fight for having housing. So I was commuting to Boston every day. 2.5 hours there, no matter what time I left the house, 2.5 hours back, no matter what time I left the set. So I was just overworked. I was so tired. And when the show ended, I was like, fuck it. You know what? I have enough money. I'm taking 6 months off. I'll come back for the summer season.
Yeah.
Went on a trip, blew all my money, came back. I'm like, let's do this. Let's get back into it. And then the actors went on strike. And then the writers went on strike. And I'm like, you know what? This will wrap up soon. This will be fine. And then it didn't. It went on for a year, no work, nothing. And then when, November, 23 rolls around, the strikes all wrap up. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's get to February. That's when everything's coming back. It didn't. Because my union, IATSE 481, they had their negotiations, so everybody was afraid to greenlight anything for fear that we were going to strike. And then that wraps up. And then the industry just seemingly, the way I was used to, didn't recover.
It hasn't yet. I mean, there's a strong group of people in this area. It's cool. It sucks. But I don't know. I think it's still going to come back. I think a lot of other places, but it sucks.
It's been a weird time, especially with a lot of things going overseas, because I mean, I don't know how much it affects you, but kind of from my perspective, it's like the writers and the actors in my union, we got what we wanted out of the negotiations, but what was the cost of that? Like, is it a little bit too expensive to make movies here now? So it's this weird transition thing. So, and it sucks too, because I loved locations.
Locations really cool. Yeah, I knew a guy, Johnny, who Johnny Horsky.
Yes,
he's the best.
Yes, he's the best. How do you know Johnny?
Just met him through a bunch of people and just
he's
people I know. Johnny's awesome.
Yeah, I was hearing about him for years, and then I finally got to work with him on Finest Kind with Tommy Lee Jones. He's the nicest
guy, and his music's great. He's fun. He's
water
fun.
Off his back, nothing bothers him.
Yeah, we shot a music video of his.
Was it for what was the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've literally had that on my Spotify playlist. Every time I create a new Spotify playlist, that song comes on over.
Right now.
Yeah.
It's right now? I think it's right. I can't remember, but like we were shot that down there, and I just remember, no names or anything. We got down there, and a friend of mine was directing it, and then the DP showed up and was in such a bad attitude that it just sent him home.
Oh,
we were already like short staffed, just having fun with everything, and it was just like, and then the director just ended up having to shoot them himself, and so did my friend who had brought me down there as well. It was
music videos kick ass though.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
It was a cool one. Yeah, no, it was fun. That was oh man, that was a while ago. But yeah, Johnny was awesome. And then he had a buddy who still does it too. I can't remember his name.
Locations or music?
Locations.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
man.
Yeah, that's
crazy
cool.
how all that works.
Yeah, no, Johnny's awesome.
So when you did Smile, what, like, coming from a location standpoint, like, how'd that go? Like, did you know the business where you were filming? Did you film in apartments, or did you go scouting? Like,
I lived right down the street from that coffee shop, and when we were kind of doing it, it was in a right spot of the right amount of like it's in Weymouth, which is. It has its fun parts of it. And it's in that right area where it has a little bit more of like, it's not a Dunkin' Donuts and it's not that thing. And the people were super nice, and they let us, basically the woman who owned it, her son came and, kind of kept an eye on us while we were there, but they were just more excited that we were shooting something. They were super nice. And it was like one side was I said, I was landscaping for a while. So it's like the garden shop that turned into a used car dealership.
Okay.
Which I would always joke was just money laundering. And then on the other side was like, there's like a junky billboard, and across the street was this like killer bar called, and you can see one of the shots, it's called the Sand Trap, which basically if you go into it and you're not one of like the 20 people who usually goes there, it's like the record stops, even no matter who you are.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those divey, like there's dive bars and there's fucking dive bars. This is like a dude's house. There's like a dude's house. And so it's right across the street, but it's the right area of like weird vibes anyway. So it worked out for that. But when Ethan wrote that, we were like, we need a coffee shop. And he lived in, I think he lived in Quincy at the time, kind of all back in that area. And I lived in Weymouth, and it was just like, we should use this place. And then everyone's really, with most shooting, you just ask.
Yeah.
And then, because I did like a post-apocalyptic one a while ago. It was just call people and ask, and just generally people are okay with it as long as you're not going to be a jerk about it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's this weird thing that happens when you're like in the industry, like union status. Like in my early days, I very much took that mentality where I was like, just fucking ask. Like that, there's nothing bad that can come from asking.
No.
And then like somewhere along the way, I got to this headspace where I'm like, no, I got to like have insurance, and they got to be paid, obviously. And then you go back in that dip where I was just talking with this amazing filmmaker, Josh Kirk. He was on the podcast recently, and he was like, just fucking ask. What are you going to lose? Like, just ask. And, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. Just like, ask.
Yeah, we work in this stuff. And plus what we do is like, you just ask people to film something. You're not like, people love stories. And when you tell people that if you can kind of romanticize what you do and get them excited about it, people are usually all right with it. I mean, just making a movie. Yes, there's like people that do bizarre movies and things like that, but and everybody like you're shooting some. What are you shooting, a porn? Thank you. We do something cool, and if you just talk about what it is, I think most people are fine with it because they want to know what it is. They're excited by it. They like stories too, and that's why we do what we do, or that's why all of this is what it is.
There's something you just said that I had a hard time latching onto for the past couple of years, but I love that you brought it up, is the idea of romantic. Like, when it comes down to it, that's what filmmaking is.
Yeah.
It's romantic. Like, lights, cameras, action, telling a story, making people feel something. There's kind of something noble in that.
Yeah, and there's something that, like, for all these elements of it, if you're directing and you're working on it, you're giving a piece of yourself to that. And then for all the craziness that actors are, because I think a lot of them are like all over the place, but they're
nuts.
Yeah, but they're doing something vulnerable, and they're doing something that you are constantly changing your personality, and so it's something that not everyone can do. As we talked about, like even in Smile, it's like just put smile, and she has to care about this for 5 seconds or whatever. For these 20 seconds of a take, 5 minutes of a take, or whatever, things like that, you need that person to be that character or do those things. And that's not easy. And it's kind of silly to be like, it's a silly profession. It is, but, not everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
not everyone can live those roles. And like, if done right, I mean, so.
Yeah. What's your process working with actors? Do you like it? Is it?
Yeah, I think it's cool talking with actors. I usually will just, like, when we work with them, whether it's on a commercial or I think you want the person to, I always like to talk about what my ideas for the story are. And then I need them to also feel like they understand it too. When we're talking about characters, almost the story is not important, more to how did they get to this point here, and making sure a decision makes sense in their head of why it happens, and that they can justify it on their own and do the emotions that go along with it. And that's just the fun part about it. So, because if I tell them what to think, they're not going to think it. And I've never been, when we do film and stuff, we're here for collaboration, and we're here for like working together. And I built the company, and we have now employees and stuff, but it's growing because it's better as a community. And film has always been better as a community. And so in the same sense of with actors and stuff, you're hiring to do the role, they're there to memorize the script and do the things. And then when they're out there, they're making decisions of their own. It's like you hire a DP to do that job. They're going to, I'm going to tell them what I like to see on that stuff, and they're going to make the decision on the best way to light it and do that stuff and to make it look as pretty as possible. And Marco does a great job with that because Marco, he shot it. And so that's how it works. And when the actors, the same thing. It's like, I want them to care about the role and do that. And for the most part, they all do. Whether they are good or bad, as long as they tried and they put something into it, it's got to be appreciated. That's all.
For sure. And I mean, in regards to actors, I've been in this experience where it's like, I don't know how you feel about this, but come on, let's call it what it is. You really make the performance in the edit.
Yeah, of course. But like, I mean, right.
I mean, yes, there is a certain amount. I would say 95% is the actor, but like, you can take a bad shot. You can take a bad performance. You put that in the right moment with the right cut. You add the right music and dial it in that way. Like we had a take on, I think I'm remembering from our second short film. No, actually, I think it was our first short film that we ever did. It was called Death March, where I didn't like the performance. And Ace has always been my editor, and he was like, Beltz, like I know you're not responding to this right now, but like trust me. And I think it was something he did with the cut, or he like added some temp music, and he was like, do you see? and it felt like a moment from Red Dragon. Mrs. Jacoby, she's changing. Do you see? And I was like, wow, I see. So that's what I mean. It's like, you know, you kind of take these performances, and that's the beauty of film, where you can kind of like mold them in that way, you know?
Yeah, but that's just like, how's the best way to approach this? So that is more of the element of trusting everybody in what they do.
Sure.
So when you have a good editor, Ace, I mean, that's just what their job is. But if what you get in the film or on tape or whatever we're using is not good, it doesn't matter what he's going to do with it. If the DP shot it wrong, if the actors fucked up everything and whatever, you still need a level that things have to be at a good point. And I started as an editor, and when it was like fixing in post sometimes is like a big nightmare.
Yeah. No, sure.
So it's like, you know, you got to be good at it, but because I was an editor and that's where it was the best place to tell the stories. Because yeah, you could put you could put it all together afterwards. But ultimately, if it's not good, there's been plenty of times one time was in film school and this woman like sent to help. She was, you know, as usual, everyone sends you something where it's like, I'm trying to get money for a larger project, so help me shoot this. They had shot it, but, you know, help me shoot this scene and it will be used to raise money. And I was
pay
like,
you in credits.
Yeah, pay you in credits and whatever. This was, you know, 10 years ago. And gave me the footage and it was like, you know, here's the VO and them talking and here's whatever. But they didn't shoot it right and they didn't do these things right. So I sent her, she's like, this doesn't look good. I go, your shot suck. It's like, I don't know. Like there's a part, I remember there was a guy and they were on a beach. It was this old man and this like older guy. So it was like 60s and like 80s. And they were standing on the beach and they were being like, you know, wistful about someone that died. And they still haven't mic'd up, but you know, they knew they were gonna ADR it later, you know, that thing of like, let's just ADR everything. And so the guy leans over and he's turned so you can see his face and he's saying like, don't worry, later on they're just gonna put dialogue over this. So all we have to do is pretend we're talking. The guy talking like you see their mouths, you see what's going on. You can't just throw the line in there and put on top of it.
So
it doesn't
wait,
work.
in this example that you're giving, like they literally was just
it was like their backs.
No, we're good. Just say whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like you're sitting there, but that's the point. It's just like if it's not done right.
No, in
matter.
that example, no, I know where you're coming from.
So yeah. It's a whole process. And you have to trust everyone along the way to do what they want to do. And when you're directing or producing, it's like it's almost like putting the right people there and just being able to kind of keep it moving. It's like it is so cliche, but it is an orchestra where it's like somebody's ultimately up there keeping tempo and telling people when to come in, but if the trumpets aren't good or on time or the strings aren't in tune, and it's not going to come together like it should, even if everything ends up good.
Sure. Now, did you always want to be a director? Is that a role you've always kind of like felt comfortable in, or is that something that, because you said you started out as an editor?
Yeah, I just always like doing my own stuff. I just wasn't part of also not really working anywhere. It's just sometimes I didn't do well working under people. It's a little easier when you're on a freelance gig or things like that to kind of move on from things if it doesn't work out. But yeah, I just was always like, I'll do this, or producing, because there's a part of like putting things together and helping, especially at this point, putting pieces in the right places and making sure whether it's for our shoots or even in life, it's just something I like doing. So it's sort of like a chess thing. It's like put all these things in the right places for the right this to this to this. And that's fun. So.
Yeah. And so you, for producers, you know, company owners, unofficial though one of them might be.
I can't, if Ethan left, would be, no, but.
Do you guys always kind of work with you know, you said you had a staff.
Yeah.
Have you like staffed out an entire like production crew, or do you still kind of pick and pull from outside, and do you work with the same crew?
Yeah, we have 8 people full time, and but we have a network outside of it. So like, you know, we what we do is non-union, and so it sucks that we can't really, you know, we don't really go outside the stuff. That's just the level we're at. We work with other companies that do union and things like commercials and things like that, but that's not the world we live in. So, but we want to do another project. And then ultimately I have a documentary I've been working on for ages that Matt and I have started, and the company's helped us because now we have Sam as our editor, and she's been awesome, but she's allowing us to also go back to these projects. When we were growing the business and things like that, it's tough when you're ultimately trying to take care of your family and things of that sort, but also try to finish projects, because I owe it to people to finish some things. I just would like to do that. And the company's helped. And so hopefully we can get a bunch of stuff off the ground this year. And we have other movies like Marco shot and Matt produced a Western, Red Reina, which was really great. And then Scott, who works with us, he's kind of he's like our media specialist, but he's killer with audio and things like that. He did a film as well that's really awesome. So everyone's kind of firing on all cylinders in terms of doing projects. And we just got to do more of it. Now that we've kind of hit a rhythm, I think this is a good point to use it more to tell stories. And we're just kind of trying to figure out what's next. And that's cool to have people around us where it's like, Matt, when we got together, it was awesome because we helped each other out. It was awesome having a producer. He didn't help with Smile just because he was doing Raina when I was doing Smile at the time. So it was more that than anything else. But Matt's just been somebody that I trusted a lot. And so as we get to this point, I know we have a lot more projects to do, and especially more projects to finish.
So when you guys started Midnight Brunch, was the idea always to kind of transition it into a vehicle for...
Isn't that always the dream?
No, I mean, I guess.
I know. Yeah, it's always been the exciting thing to have those opportunities there, because...
Like have something that pays you so that you can make the...
Yeah, I'm lucky that I have great people around me more than anything, because at this point, we have first of all, it's silly, but it's like, first of all, I got people to support me at home. So that's important that you got people there behind you in that sense. And then we work with a lot of great people. And without them, the people who are, everyone at Midnight Brunch and all the people part of our network, without them, none of it would be there. So I'm just helping make sure we can have more fun things to do at this point. Even with the work, it's like, I'm just trying to bring in projects that we can have fun with, and everyone's got a story to tell. So that's sort of easy to find, because I was like going to bars and talking to people. That's how the Brewland started, and that's how other things do. I don't know. We like conversations and we like stories. So sometimes it's cool to go and seek them out. So.
Do you plan on hitting the festival circuit? I know you did New Bedford Film Festival, which is where we've
done a few now.
Smile making the rounds.
Yeah, we've done a few now. We're just kind of picking and choosing. It's not. I suck with that. So
tell me more about that, because you and I have something to bond on.
I know. I don't know. I finish a project and I'm excited, and if I like it, it's awesome. But I think like anybody, you just get like, there's a level of like,
oh, what have I done?
I don't. What if someone doesn't like it? But then there's a level of you pretend like, I don't care if they don't like it, but I do care if they don't like it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. At least if like I can watch all the way through and get something from it, cool. But
you're more happy with the process of making the thing.
Yeah, that's the fun part. I started doing it because of the working with people and being collaborative. It's silly. It's telling stories, and it was fun. So that's, to me, is the fun part. But like the going to festivals and things like that. I've only been at one. I think it's been in 4. I can't remember. Ethan knows. And we just
Smile's
applied.
Been in 4.
Yeah, and I've only been at 1. But
were you at New Bedford? Did we
not
cross paths?
No, I was in New Jersey. My wife's family is down there, so I was not around. But it came because I was always planning on going down to Jersey, and then Ethan was just like, "Oh yeah, we got into this." I was like, "Not around."
Too bad.
No. And I'm excited, and I'm glad even some people dug it. So, and I like that. And we're going to go into, I know he just sent it to Mystic, and I think there's another one. So we'll probably do it a couple more. But then, like anything, it's, I have an old project I want to re-edit it from a number of years ago. And then we have to finish Brewland. And then we're kind of figuring out what to shoot as now. Because even when we did Smile, it was in 2020 and things like that. So we were sort of still like, like figuring stuff out. We're much better now as a team, as a company. Because it was even in 2020, it was really just Matt, Marco, and I were part of the company, and Ethan was with us. But, what we are now is like a real company is like the weird part. And that's where it's like, oh, okay. So now that we have it, we want to do things with it. And everyone is part of the company now is going to make the process easier because we have people that are excited about what they're doing, and that's cool.
So out of curiosity, so with Smile specifically, this is something I've struggled with, so I'm interested to hear your perspective. But how, given how long that process took to film it, how do you stay motivated through all of that? To be like, no, we got to finish this. This is something worth finishing. How do you not like? There's so many times in the editing process because we would always like schedule our production. Like it was the big fever to the production, and then you're in the fever of the production, and then it's like the editing process takes six months, a year, and it's like fuck this.
Yeah,
like,
momentum is everything, and if you lose momentum on projects, we all kind of die on that. It's like the joke of like when you see memes online about people and like, oh, here's this project I've been taking 6 months to do in my house. We all just do better when we're in momentum, and sometimes we get really inspired and then we just lose it. But it's just trying to get excited about it again. And for film, it's just every time you watch it again and you realize there's something there, that's cool. And so with Smile, it was like Ethan and I were working together and we just continued, especially Ethan. It was like, we got to finish it. We got to finish it. And I agreed. It's just when your focus gets all over the place, it's hard. But he was right. And we do. And now that's why I'm looking back at other things. It's now I'm in a better spot to be like, it's better for everyone to finish these things. I owe a lot of people. A lot of people were part of that project.
Yeah, can you talk more about Brewland? You've mentioned it a couple of times.
Matt and I started
Brewland?
A beer documentary 10 years ago, and we interviewed a ton of people within the craft beer industry. And it was like not so much a love letter, but it was just a fascinating industry. I had gone to Vermont with my wife, and it was right when this new craft beer boom was going. And it was fascinating where it's like all of these breweries are like, not doing social media, but people are losing their minds about going there. It was Alchemist, Hill Farmstead, and Lawson's up in Vermont. And pardon me. But and we just started it and it just snowballed because it was like, we'll just do this story and then we'll do this story. And then we shot in like 25 states. We did like 80 breweries and things like that.
Wow.
And made a lot of friends along the way. And it was
a lot of
great.
Free beer.
Yeah, a lot of beer. A lot of beer. Thankfully not a lot of crazy stories, but a lot of fun. But it was fascinating talking to people
and kind of learning like how and why they, started their own brewery.
And then it was like kind of talking about the industry because beer is another thing where like the industry, and it's still now it's in a weird spot, but it's booming. It boomed for a long time, and it's kind of leveling off now. But people are passionate about beer, and I'm not sure now, but we just have a great story that's still technically a lot of it's relevant. A lot of it's still what the industry is facing and things of that sort. Like we're planning on doing a couple pickup things with just to update some things recently. But there were just a lot of people that helped make it happen, and we have it, and it just needs to get finished. And it's a good story. So it was cool because we kept shooting because it kept getting more interesting. It kept getting more fascinating because beer is really complex. And it's another thing where it's like you're all friends, but you're all fighting over tap space. Larger brewers, like to what extent like Sam Adams represents within the industry, or Yingling, kind of like bureaucratic stuff while also trying to be artists within an industry. It's really interesting, like a what's punk story of like, what is craft beer? How special it was cool. But like, with a lot of faults, but, just needs to get finished. So we're hoping to do a pilot now, and do like a docuseries. So we have a 70-minute cut that needs to get cut down, and then we want to add some stuff. So hopefully that gets done sooner rather than later.
No shit.
Yes.
Well, I think it's interesting you bring that up too, because you were kind of talking about how it kind of exploded there for a little bit. And now you don't let me put words in your mouth, but if I remember correctly, you just said something about how it's kind of in a weird spot right now. But it also seems cool in a way that, I don't know, like one might consider Woodstock, because I never considered myself to be a part of like the brew culture. But I have a friend who has Grace. Are you familiar with Grace Hill Brewery in Westerly?
Yes. Yeah,
So my friend, his brother was like at the ground level when they just started out.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, well, God damn it, like beer is beer, is it not? And like him kind of talking about like why their beer is special and like, you know, the environment that they created with the tap room and like blah, 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 blah. And then you hear all these other stories and it's like, okay, that seemed to like really blossom in like a 10-year span where like microbreweries were like the biggest thing. So like in my head, I'm like, at best, you've got like the starting of something, like a good story, as you were saying, like
Yeah.
pitches a, you know, mini series or like a docu series that could continue. Or at worst, you captured a moment.
We
Like,
did.
you know?
And that's a good way to look at it. We haven't actually, that's a cool point where it's like we were able to capture a moment, and because we were there when we were filming when, so for a long time, they basically would designate what a craft brewer is, and it would have to be small, traditional, and independent. What that
And
meant
what
was,
defines small?
exactly. So small, right. So that was the weird part about small. Small was dictated by like Sam Adams. And so, but Sam Adams on
Is
like
huge.
And they're huge in craft beer standards. They're like here, and then the other guys are here, but still you have Budweiser that's like here.
Oh,
But
okay.
Sam Adams would find himself, that's why. So even in Sam Adams' own interest, they seem that way, but they weren't competing with Budweiser because Budweiser is massive. They were like Miller Coors is like huge. So like they're still technically a part of here, but if they weren't, they would lose some of the benefits and they would get lost in that middle ground. So the small, but it was always kind of dictated by that. And then independent was you couldn't be more than, I think it was 50% owned by another company. So you could get funding, you could get investors, but you couldn't be more than 50% owned by a larger company. And then traditional was with the ingredients. Like you had to use certain ingredients because Budweiser and some other ones would use rice, and it's considered an adjunct ingredient. But they changed that.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it matters.
Treat me like I'm in, you know, kindergarten.
One of the things that brewers are always talk about that they admire about the larger guys is the consistency. It's hard to make a beer consistently.
Okay.
And so, you know, you have a Budweiser in California, you have a Budweiser in Singapore, you have a
You know
Budweiser
you're getting
here.
the same thing.
The same thing. And so the rice, sort of like that. But they changed that because brewers would start to mess around. They would be like, we are using rice. There's a couple of breweries I know that do make great rice lagers and things like that. So they changed it, which then made Yuengling craft beer because Yuengling was technically small by the standards of what they had created. And it was always owned by the Yuengling family. But now that the ingredients were changed, and so then the industry, we were there when it happened, the industry got larger because Yuengling was up here with Sam Adams making X number of barrels per year. So the industry got bigger, but it didn't get bigger because of more breweries. It got bigger because it was now accounting for Yuengling making millions of beers, but it didn't mean that we had like 1,000 more breweries. We had this element. So we were filming at the same time when some of these changes were happening because it, you know, is like, well, is that craft beer? Is that still craft? Does that matter? People were like, oh, well, does that really still count? Like, that's not, because Yuengling was in their sort of gray area because but they were a legacy thing. They're like an East Coast, like, you know, like there was like, I remember when Yuengling first came up to Massachusetts, like people were like really excited about it. It was just one of those beers, but that's, you know.
And like, again, treat me like I'm a kindergartner, but it's like, you know.
I forgot I didn't have this mic on.
No,
So
you don't have the
like,
mic on. You're good. So you've got Yuengling, which is considered, like in my kindergarten brain, I'm thinking like, that's a huge fucking beer. That's a huge brand.
Same size as Sam Adams. Yeah, same size, just a little bit bigger than Sam Adams, if I remember right.
But then you guys were kind of documenting what was below that.
But Yuengling technically became a part of that. That's what I mean. We talked to Sam Adams too. They are still craft beer now, or we're craft brewers. I don't know any changes recently, but when we were filming, it was technically considered craft beer. Technically, they're within the same category as Grey Sail.
And craft beer being defined as we're gonna fuck with our ingredients, like
yeah, because it did at the time, and it's kind of stabled out from that. But there was a time within craft beer that people were like, "We're gonna do all this crazy shit," and it was great. It was cool because that was sort of the fun and the artistry of it, and kind of enjoying themselves. But there definitely was a point, like a lot of things, we sometimes things go too far, and I just think it made people step back from beer because it was like, well, I don't want to drink a 13% beer, and I don't want to like wait and all these things. Like there was, I went to, when we first went to the Alchemist, it was like, standing in line and like outside for these things, or like we went to Hill Farmstead up in Vermont, and it's like, he's grown since then. He's considered the best brewer in the world. And this beer is fantastic. Staying outside in the rain for like hours to try to get beer. And it just like, the whole industry was created on these like holy grail beers and these crazy stuff, and it just got really exciting. And people bought it, and it was great. I loved it. I was there because I liked it, but I always am like, it. Sometimes there's an element of kumbaya that's like, okay, but you all ultimately are businesses, and you all ultimately have to, do that. And so that was interesting to me how it all worked. How does this happen when there's only so much shelf space, or there's only so many tap handles in a bar? And especially like you said it, the most important thing was they wanted it to be more like, the initial model for craft beer was going to be more of like your local watering hole. Like breweries in Europe are more like everybody has their own brew. My favorite brewery right now, or the place I go to a lot, are guys that are in my town. They're 42nd, and they're like, if you go there, it's a local bar. And that's what makes it cool. They make the beer, which is great, and they make good beer, which is great. But it's also a place you go to hang out. My first place I really loved around me in Weymouth was Barrel House Z. They had a great tap room. I got buddies up at Widowmaker. I love hanging with those guys. They have a great tap room. The tap room's important nowadays because that's where they're going to get the most out of it.
Okay.
So
if I'm picking up what you're putting down, having documented all of these different, breweries, you're saying, or you might be hinting at that, like a large part of why they're successful doesn't necessarily come from like putting volumes on shelf, but it really comes down to like the environment they curate, and kind of being like that local bar that also has good flavor.
Yeah, like you need to have good beer first of all. They got to have good beer. There is ultimately, if your beer stinks, the bar will close. Like it really doesn't matter how much people like it. It's just natural. But then after that, people have to connect with the brewery or want to be there, or that's the bigger connection. And it seems silly, but like people need to find their personalities, and the people like, they're, it's like Widowmakers guys I was talking about that I love, and they're like buddies, they're good guys, but like they have a place that like they know their audience and they're unapologetic with it. And that's the cool part about it. It's just like, once you're more on, like people go buy the beer, their beer is excellent, but like the people like go in there too. They like being
I
part
know
of
this
that community.
sounds crazy to even be asking this, but like these are things I never thought of. Like I'm putting the pieces together right now. Like one of my favorite tap houses in Rhode Island is Apponaug Brewery.
Okay.
For the life,
I'm gonna write all these down.
Yeah. We'll get you a list. One of my favorite tap houses is Apponaug Brewery, and it's only just occurring to me now. I've never seen their stuff on a shelf in a liquor store. Like I always go there. I always know I'm getting their Pilsner, but the reason I really love going there is because I know they make it in-house, and they have one of the best places to hang out in the summer. They're right on a river, even though it's like the Pawtucket River. Doesn't matter. They've got amazing deck space, and so
go support your local brewer.
Amen. So are you the one editing this,
No,
project?
Sam's been working on it. So as she's been working on, she's our editor, and she put the cut together, and she's done a great job with it because we have so many interviews and so much stuff that she was trolling through as she was working on other things. But it's just, we've done one. Now we just need to sit down and have like a real, like, kind of like another session of like really arguing through some stuff. And I think that it's healthy within any sort of creative process to argue, because I want people to be passionate about their concepts. So it's like, we have to get a good fight session on figuring out what stays, what goes, and how we want to book. Because like what happened was we finished it, and we did get a cut of Brewland, and it was an hour and 40 minutes, and it was dense. And to me, I was
not enjoyable to watch.
No, it was fine, but I thought it needed to be spaced out. And even with the cut, we didn't have a lot of the things that we want to touch base on. So then, you lose hope, and you sort of think back on it, and you lose some time, and then you come back and you're like, okay, let's do this. This is a docuseries. And then you have an idea for the stuff, and things change. and then it's just come down to do a pilot, put it together, put a package together, and at least for me, whether it goes somewhere or whatever, it's done. I just need something finished.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I respect that, but I guess I'm curious. It's like why docuseries? If you're telling me that you've got an hour and 40, why not try and do like a nice clean hour and a half and like market it as its own documentary and
Because
try and like sell that?
Because I think it's really, I think the story you would get from that
Evolving.
Yeah, would be, it's always evolving, and it's only a part of the problem. You know, like there's a history lesson that has to go into it. There's the past not repeating itself. There's old issues that are affecting new issues that are like, you know, so like it wouldn't tell the whole story.
And you feel like it could be an ongoing thing. So it's like
even ongoing, even like 5-6 episodes would be able to dig in more on some of the stuff. It's like, you know,
and of those 5 or 6 episodes, hypothetically, that you're imagining, do you feel where you guys currently stand, like you have the material to potentially fill those 5 or 6 episodes? You just, you know,
because a lot of the problems are still the same. There's a lot of problems with shelf space and things like that. There's a lot of problems with distribution. There's a lot of problems with costs of materials and things of that sort, or sourcing. You know, the history itself, the old guard, the community itself eating itself, you know, because like the brewers are always fine, as always with a lot of things. It's like the community around it that sometimes gets to a point of like, what's craft beer, what's not craft beer, or they don't really count, or they do this.
Do you find it gets like a little too much pinkies up mentality? Like
not as much anymore, but at the time we were shooting, for sure, it was definitely like,
and in that way you kind of capture like a cultural moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Where everybody thinks they're the keeper of what real craft brewing is.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, ultimately, it's like a lot of things. It comes down to, you know, what do you like to drink? A sommelier once told me, wine-wise, he's like, the difference between a cheap wine and an expensive wine generally is nothing, and
how much you're willing to pay for it.
How much you're willing to pay for it. But if you like the wine, it's a great wine.
Yeah,
and same thing. If you like the beer, it's a great beer.
Yeah,
doesn't matter if it's, you know, in the whole East Coast or if it's just in the tap room.
Sure.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
That's awesome. No, that actually sounds like really cool. Like, do you have a estimated timeline for when you guys are looking to wrap this up with Sam and the edit?
Always.
It was supposed to be done a year ago.
Yeah, it was supposed to be done years ago. Some jerk. Some jerk.
All right, that's actually a good jumping off point. So how are you, you know, in the director role with the edit, especially coming from an editor's background? Are you over the shoulder, breathing down the neck, or are you kind of like, you do your thing, I'll come back in a week, we'll touch base on what I see? No,
I try to grab as much as I can while on set, and then I'll look at it usually afterwards and grab the stuff I need. But then once the editors get it, they're just going to run with it. And I want the same thing. It's Sam does a great job. You're not breathing down their neck
about like, no, we need a microsecond off that cut.
No. Matt's better with details and things like that.
Sure.
That's why Matt's great. Matt's great with story, but then he's also great on stuff where it's like the minutia. And I just want to be like, is the structure there? Is the whole thing there? Is that the story we want? Great. And now Matt, help me come in and fine tune this.
Cool.
Now help me come in and fine tune this and make sure it's like, you know, like I'll know when it needs to have marks. I know when it has with that, but as long as it tells the story I want or goes where I want it to go, that's generally.
And what about on set? I like to ask this question of our guests. I have a feeling what your answer is going to be, but are you, when it comes to like number of takes, are you Clint Eastwood or are you David Fincher? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. Eastwood's one take, and Fincher will do like 40.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot because I think it gets like, you know, you can drain people.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, if I can't get it within a first couple, it's more of like trying to pivot and trying to make sure that we can get it the way we want it to have it work. I mean, there's been every time, you know, there's times where you need to like I was doing a film a while ago, and it was the only time I ever like, I'm a very emotional guy, but like the only time I really like snapped on somebody was like we had this guy fall on the ground and reach for something like 8 times, and he kept getting like mad at me about it, and I was like, And I was like, don't look at the, because you fall down, look at the gun. Don't fall down, look at the gun. I go, stop looking at the gun. Just fall down and then find the gun. Fall down and find the gun. And he's like, what am I doing? I was just like, don't look at the fucking gun. It's like, don't look at the gun. And so, but generally at that point, I was at my wit's end, and that wasn't cool more than anything. Yeah. That was like, you know, they don't get it. You're saying something wrong. And that was a long time ago. It's like, if they're not getting it, you're not communicating well.
Sure.
So
I love that.
Just try to communicate better. We always try to do that within our roles. So that's the biggest thing is communication. So if we can, I feel like a couple takes should do it, because I would hope that when we've talked, when we've prepped for it, it's not going to require more than a couple. But one take, I think there's been like I always want a safety. So I'm not Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
I'm also not old yet.
Maybe one day.
No, I know. Hopefully. Maybe not.
Or one day you'll go down the Kubrick route and be like, no, like fucking 100 takes.
Yeah, I know. Bare minimum. I know. And do things with a candle.
Cool. So do you have, I guess I should ask you, I mean, the amount of projects you've already got kind of, you know, either finished or in the works, but like, do you have any desires to do like a feature narrative one day? Like, are you working with Ethan on kind of writing anything like that? Do you have anything in the chamber?
I think the idea for us at Midnight Brunch is to do a feature. I think that we were kind of like, Matt especially has been like, you know, it's probably at this point worth our efforts more to try to do a feature. And I'm leaning that way.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it'll be easier and more fun if we do a short, but I think he's right with the resources and what we have right now. It's probably best. But same thing as like Brewland, we have to have, it's probably a couple of days, we'll have a good like fight session. I think we're in it as a team, and we'll just have to sit down and kind of see what kind of ideas we have and what direction we want to go. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. But we're excited to do something. I think that's the cool part. So
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, Mike, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. If anybody wants to find you, find your work, connect in any way, where would you send them?
Midnightbrunch.com. And I was lucky enough to get Mike Sills on Instagram, since, I don't know, I was the first one, I guess. And there's others, but so yeah, Midnight Brunch, it's where our work is, and it's where we tell stories for a living. Even the not seemingly exciting ones. Everybody's got something. That's all.
And that's all that counts.
Yeah.
Get out there and tell your story.
Exactly.
Fuck yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Everybody, Mike Sills. Later.